Welcome. You found your way to True Story, a quiet corner of the night where only the brave come to listen. Tonight's theme is simple and dangerous. 3 true encounters that took place under warm summer skies, when the world should have felt safe but didn't. These aren't tales of monsters from legends or ghosts from fairy tales. These are stories of real people who saw, heard, and felt things that never should have existed beneath the summer moon. You'll hear of moments that started ordinary, a road trip, a campsite, a quiet town, and ended in silence no one can explain. So before we begin, a small warning. These stories stay with you. You might close this video tonight, but you won't stop thinking about it when the lights go out. Most of you will listen and leave without subscribing. But if you're one of the few who stays until the end, you already know. We make these stories for you. Tell me, what time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments before the night gets any darker now. Let's begin. The fire wasn't supposed to still be burning. I remember staring at the orange glow through the trees, thinking maybe one of the guys had gone back to the clearing. But when I got closer, the pit looked exactly the same as we'd left it. Charred logs, crushed beer cans, half-melted marshmallow skewers, and the fire was alive again. Not flickering like embers, burning, full steady flames, and the weirdest part, there was no smoke. The air was heavy and still, the kind that sticks to your skin on a humid August night, but I couldn't smell a thing. No wood, no ash, no smoke. Just heat, the kind that prickled the back of my neck. That's when I realized the circle of stones we'd built around the fire had shifted, like someone had moved them, neatly, almost respectfully. I thought it was a prank. It had to be. Earlier that evening, there were 4 of us, me, Dylan, my cousin Mark, and Lila. We'd grown up spending every summer at my uncle's cabin up near Birch Lake. It wasn't fancy, just a couple of old rooms, a dock and a patch of woods that led to a campsite we'd used since we were kids. We hadn't been back in years. Life happened, college, jobs, whatever. But when Dylan suggested a last summer night throwback, it felt right. Nostalgic. We laughed about how dumb we used to be, telling ghost stories, staying up till sunrise, carving our initials into trees like idiots. And now here we were again in our 20s, doing the same thing. Everything was normal until around 1 a.m. The fire had died down to glowing coals, and we were all half drunk and lazy from the heat. The woods around us were quiet. No bugs, no breeze, not even frogs. That's what struck me first, the silence. You don't realize how loud the forest usually is until it stops. I was about to say something when Lila's head jerked up. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. We all froze. At first, I thought it was an animal, something small moving in the brush behind the firelight, but then it sounded like footsteps, soft, dragging, unhurried. Mark threw a stick into the dark, probably a raccoon, but the sound stopped right when he said that, then came a low crunch. Closer this time, deliberate. "Who's there?" Dylan called out, his voice sharper than usual. No answer. Just the sound of breathing, barely audible but human. That was when I realized I could see shapes moving in the trees. Not 1 but 2, pale flashes between the trunks. Watching. I grabbed the flashlight and swept the beam around, but the second the light hit them, they vanished. Gone. Lila wanted to leave right then. She said her chest felt tight, like the air itself was pressing down. Mark tried to laugh it off, but he wouldn't look at the woods again. We packed up faster than I think any of us wanted to admit. I dumped water over the fire until it hissed and steamed. I remember watching the last ember go dark, feeling that same weird silence settle back in. And then we left. The walk back to the cabin was maybe 15 minutes, but it felt longer. None of us talked. Every few steps I thought I heard someone behind us, the crunch of dry pine needles matching our rhythm. When we reached the cabin porch, I turned around, nothing. Just a wall of black trees, that should have been it. We should have gone inside, locked the doors, laughed about how paranoid we'd been. But about half an hour later, when I stepped outside to grab my jacket from the truck, I saw it. That orange glow again, deep in the woods, right where we'd been. I went back inside and told them. Dylan swore he'd poured the water himself. Mark said maybe there was leftover fuel in the wood. But we all knew how impossible that was. The logs were soaked through. Still, Dylan insisted on checking it out. "It's just fire," he said, grabbing the flashlight. Let's not freak out over a campfire. I followed him because I didn't want him going alone. Mark came too. Lila refused. She stayed on the porch watching us disappear between the trees. The deeper we went, the stranger it felt. The forest looked wrong. The trees were too close together, like they'd shifted in the dark. The path we'd walked earlier seemed narrower, and the dirt under our shoes felt soft, muddy, like it had rained even though it hadn't. When we reached the clearing, my stomach dropped. The fire was roaring. Higher than before, no sound, no smoke, no wind, just flames that moved too slow, almost in sync with our breathing. The rocks were arranged in a perfect circle this time, not the messy one we'd made. A clean, symmetrical ring. And something, had placed our beer cans around it like offerings. What the hell? Dylan whispered. Then he saw it. One of the logs wasn't a log. It was a shape. Long, pale, with fingers curled near the coals. A hand. I wanted to believe it was driftwood, but the closer I looked, the clearer it got. Fingernails. Skin bubbled like wax. The smell hit next. Sweet. Sickly, rotten. Mark gagged. Dylan took a step back. I grabbed his arm. We need to go. But Dylan was staring into the flames. His face went blank, eyes wide and glassy. Someone's in there, he muttered. And then he stepped forward. I pulled him back, but he fought me off. They're calling, he said, like he was sleep-talking. They're saying my name. I didn't hear anything, but I swear the fire moved. It leaned toward him like it was reaching. I screamed his name, but he didn't turn. He stepped right up to the pit, reached his hand out, and the flames went out. Completely, instant blackness. We ran. When we burst out of the woods, Lila was waiting on the porch crying. She said she'd seen someone behind us. A woman, tall and thin, walking just at the edge of the light. We locked the doors, every window, every latch. Mark tried to call for help, but there was no signal. Not even the faint one we'd had earlier. Dylan didn't speak. He just sat on the floor, staring at his hand. The skin on his palm was red, blistered in the shape of a ring. I asked him what happened in there, what he saw, but he just whispered. She wanted me to stay. Around 3 a.m., the light started flickering. The air smelled like smoke again, even though nothing was burning. Then came the sound of footsteps on the porch, slow, wet. We didn't move. The doorknob turned once, twice, then stopped. Dylan stood up. He said, "It's her." Before we could stop him, he opened the door. The porch was empty. Just the sound of cicadas, faint and distant again, like the world had finally remembered it was summer. We didn't sleep, not even when the sun came up. When we finally dared to go back to the clearing, the fire pit was gone. Not cold gone, vanished. The ground was smooth, untouched, like it had never existed, but there were footprints, bare, blackened, leading out of the trees toward the lake. Only 3 sets. Mine, Mark's, Lila's. Dylan's weren't there. They searched for him for days. Police, rescue teams, divers, nothing. Not even a trace. They said he must have wandered off, maybe drowned, but I know that's not true. Every night since then, I've been dreaming of that fire. I see it still, burning behind my eyelids, soundless and alive. And sometimes, when I wake up too fast, I smell smoke. I haven't been back to Birch Lake. None of us have. But last week, I got a photo in the mail. No return address. Just a blurry picture of a fire pit glowing in the dark. And if you look closely, really closely, you can see a hand reaching out of the flames. The same hand Dylan burned. It's been 8 months since Dylan disappeared, and I thought I'd finally moved on. Until last night, when my phone buzzed at 3:17 a.m. No number, just a single video. It was short, maybe 10 seconds. Blurry at first, then focused on something orange and flickering. A fire. The same kind of impossible, smokeless flame we saw that night in Birch Lake. And right before the video cut off, I heard a voice whisper, "You forgot something." I didn't sleep after that. I just sat there, staring at the dark corners of my apartment, feeling that same humid weight in the air. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was a sick prank. Maybe Mark or Lila, though we hadn't spoken much since it happened. We all sort of drifted apart, like that night poisoned whatever was left of our friendship. But then I noticed the last frame of the video. There was something reflected in the flames. A face. Burned, but still recognizable. Dylan. I told myself not to go back. I told myself 100 times. But that voice in the video, the way it said, "You forgot something," it got under my skin. By the third night, I couldn't stop thinking about the clearing, about the fire that wouldn't die, about Dylan's hand disappearing into the light. So I drove back. Alone. Birch Lake looked smaller somehow. The cabins were half collapsed, the dock broken. The woods looked sick. Gray bark, no birds, just the crunch of dead leaves under my boots. The air smelled faintly of smoke, even though there hadn't been any recent burns. When I reached the clearing, my stomach turned. The pit was back. Not exactly like before. It was deeper this time. The stones were darker and someone had arranged them perfectly again like a shrine. In the middle was a pile of old wood, soaked and blackened, but no fire. Not yet. And then I saw something half buried in the dirt. A ring, melted, warped metal. Dylan's class ring. I picked it up and immediately felt a heat pulse through my hand like the metal was still hot from a flame. My vision blurred for a second, and I swear I heard something behind me. A faint whisper. Stay. I turned so fast I nearly fell. Nothing, just the woods, still and heavy. I dropped the ring and ran back to the cabin. The cabin looked exactly the same. My uncle had sold it years ago, but the lock was still broken. Inside, everything was covered in dust, except for the fireplace. Someone had been here recently. There were ashes, fresh ones. And in the middle of the ashes, 3 burnt beer cans, the same kind we'd left that night. I almost laughed, like the world was playing a cruel joke. But then I saw something scratched into the wooden floor in front of the hearth. You left me. The words were carved deep, over and over, until the letters almost cut through the wood. That was when the smell hit me again. That sickly sweet burning smell that never made smoke. The window next to me fogged over slowly, even though the air was warm. And then, like a child's finger tracing from the other side, words appeared in the condensation. Come back to the fire. I froze. Something moved outside, a flicker of light, then another. I stepped out onto the porch and saw them. 2 campfires, burning faintly in the woods. One in the clearing we used to sit in and another deeper further down the slope toward the lake. Both burned without smoke. Both waiting. I should have left. I know that. But I couldn't. Something about the way the flames pulsed, slow, like a heartbeat, drew me closer. As I walked, the ground got soft again, like that night. I could hear faint voices under my footsteps like whispers trapped in the mud. When I reached the first fire pit, it was empty again. But there was a photograph resting in the ashes. It was us. The 4 of us. Except Dylan's face was burned out, replaced by a smear of black. Behind us, though, there was something else. A woman. Tall. Thin. Watching. The same one Lila swore she saw that night on the porch. The second fire was smaller, but hotter. When I got closer, I realized it wasn't burning wood, it was burning photos. Hundreds of them, all of us, every summer. Every year we'd been here. Some from angles I couldn't explain, like someone had been watching us all along. And then I saw a newer one. Taken from behind my apartment window, last week. That's when the whisper came again, right behind my ear. Sit down. The heat surged, and I stumbled backward. My legs gave out, and for a second, everything went black. When I came to, it was dark. The fire had grown taller, brighter, and someone was sitting across from me. Dylan, at least what looked like him. His skin was gray, cracked, his eyes glowing faint orange from the reflection. He smiled, slow and tired. I told you, he said, it doesn't go out. I couldn't move. Every instinct in me screamed to run, but my body felt pinned. You left me here, he whispered. We all did. Now it's your turn to stay. The flames hissed louder like they were laughing. He reached his hand across the fire, palm up. The skin was blistered, but his ring was back. I've been waiting. I don't remember running, but somehow, I ended up at the lake. The water was black and still. My reflection looked pale and wrong. Behind me, I could see the glow from the woods getting brighter. And then, faintly from across the lake, I saw 3 other fires light up, one after another. I drove all night to get home, didn't stop once. I kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see that orange glow following me down the highway. When I finally got home, I burned my clothes, I threw the ring in the trash. But when I woke up this morning, the smell of smoke was in my apartment again, and there was something on my kitchen counter, a small pile of ashes. Inside the ashes, my phone. Melted. It was playing that same 10-second video, except this time it didn't stop at 10 seconds. The camera turned, showed someone holding it, me, and behind me, that same impossible fire. I don't know if this is spreading, or if I brought it back somehow, but every night since I've seen the same flicker through my window. A soft orange glow moving closer. Lila texted me an hour ago. She said she's been seeing it too. Mark won't answer my calls. I think we made a mistake that night. I think the fire wasn't meant to die. It was meant to choose, and maybe it did. It's 12:04 a.m. now. My apartment smells thick with heat and ash, but when I open the window, the air outside is still and cold. There's a sound in the hallway. Footsteps. Soft. Wet. I think it's him. No, them. I can see the light bleeding in from under my door. Flickering. Orange. It doesn't smoke, it doesn't die. It just keeps burning. And I finally understand what Dylan meant. Some fires aren't meant to keep you warm. They're meant to keep you. When I opened my eyes, everything smelled like ash. Not like burnt wood, more like skin. Sweet and rotten and familiar. The air was thick, heavy, hard to breathe. I thought for a second I was still in my apartment, but the ceiling above me was made of pine. The kind from the cabin. I sat up too fast, my throat burning. My clothes were different. Damp, smoky, and covered in black dust. My phone was gone. My car keys, everything. And then I heard it again. That sound I'd tried so hard to forget. Crack. Pop. Hiss. The fire was back. It was burning outside the window. Same perfect orange, same wrong silence. I stumbled to the door and yanked it open, calling out for help. But the woods outside didn't look real anymore. The trees bent inward, their tops lost in a fog that glowed faintly orange from the flames. And I wasn't alone. Someone was sitting by the fire pit, back turned, shoulders stiff. Dylan? No answer. The shape shifted slightly, like whoever it was had heard me but didn't want to look. I took a step closer, and the ground beneath me gave a low creak like I was walking on old wood instead of dirt. When I got close enough, I saw the back of his head. Black hair. Burnt short, my heart stopped. Dylan, I said again, please, we have to go. Slowly his head turned, half of his face was gone. Not burned off, missing, like something hollowed it out and forgot to fill it back in. The rest of him looked alive, breathing, watching. You came back, he said softly. His voice sounded the same, but something in it was wrong. Like there were other voices layered underneath, whispering in time with his words. I couldn't speak. You shouldn't have left me, he said. She doesn't like when people leave. Who? I managed to whisper. The woman in the fire, he said, and then smiled. She's older than the forest. Older than the lake. She doesn't die, she remembers. The wind picked up. The flames moved, stretching taller, like something inside them was standing up. For a moment I saw her, a woman's outline, long arms, hair moving slow like smoke underwater. Her face was blurred, as if the heat itself was trying to hide her. Every time she swayed, the fire made that low, popping laugh. She kept it burning, Dylan said, all these years. For the ones who go missing. For the ones who forget. My skin prickled. What do you want from me? He blinked. She wants you to remember. Then he pointed at my chest. That's when I saw it. A faint circular burn mark just under my collarbone. I hadn't noticed it before, but now it throbbed with heat, pulsing like a heartbeat. She marked you, Dylan said. That night. When you poured the water, you tried to kill her. I shook my head. We didn't know. The flames cracked louder. He stood up, slow, stiff. She doesn't care if you knew. You took her light away. Now she's taking yours. The ground trembled. The ring of stones around the fire cracked open and a black hand rose from the center. Thin, wet, trembling, I ran. The woods didn't lead where they should. Every path I took circled back to the fire. Even when I thought I was heading toward the lake, I'd look up and see that same orange glow bleeding through the trees again. Every sound behind me echoed. Footsteps, breathing, the snap of twigs, and each time I turned, the shadows would shift just out of reach. When I finally saw the water, I fell to my knees. The lake looked still, but the surface reflected a burning forest. My forest. The reflection showed more fires than there were trees, and in the middle of the lake, floating just beneath the water, was Lila. Her eyes were open, but her mouth was full of black water. She looked peaceful, like she'd been waiting. Something about the way she floated made my chest hurt, like she was trying to tell me it was too late to leave. I screamed her name, but the sound didn't travel. It just got swallowed by the mist. And then her head turned toward me, not her body, just her head. "Stay," she whispered, water spilling from her mouth like smoke. When I backed away, the mud around my feet pulled, like the earth itself didn't want to let me go. My fingers dug into the dirt until they hit something solid, metal. I yanked it free, a lighter. My old one. The one I lost that night. It still worked. I flicked it open, desperate for light, but when the flame caught, it didn't look right. It was orange, too orange, and it didn't move. It stayed perfectly still, frozen like a tiny version of that impossible campfire. Then I heard footsteps. Dylan again. Voice close now, almost behind me. "Don't fight it," he said. "She already lit you." I turned, ready to throw the lighter, but he was gone. Only the echo of his voice remained, whispering from every direction at once. "She doesn't let go of what burns." I stumbled back toward the cabin, choking on smoke that wasn't there. When I pushed through the door, I saw movement inside, someone pacing near the window. Mark. He looked wild. Eyes red, face streaked with soot. "You got my messages," he said. "You came back. What messages?" He pointed to a pile of ash on the table. Inside it were scraps of burned paper. The only thing legible on one was a sentence written in shaky ink. "It won't stop calling me. She's in my head," Mark said. "Every night. The sound of her fire. I tried to put it out, but it keeps lighting up again. Even when I sleep." Before I could answer, the temperature dropped. The window glass fogged instantly. Words formed slowly backwards. "All of you." Mark grabbed my arm. "We have to go. She's not after one of us. She wants all of us." But when we opened the door, the fire pit was right outside, closer than before. And there were 3 figures standing around it now. Lila, Dylan, and someone else. A 4th shape, flickering at the edges like it couldn't fully form. Me. Mark screamed and ran for the woods. I went after him, but the fog swallowed him whole. I kept running until my lungs hurt, until I tripped and fell face first into cold dirt. When I looked up, I was back at the lake. The reflection showed 4 figures around the fire, and then, for the first time, I saw her clearly. The woman from the flames, her face wasn't burned, it was made of light. Her eyes glowed like coals, her mouth a deep, endless black. She looked at me, and the fire went silent. Then her voice came. Not from the woods, but from inside my head. "You kept me alive. I didn't understand. You burned for me," she said. "Every fear, every story. Every time you remembered the fire, you fed it." The realization hit me like a punch. She wasn't feeding on death. She was feeding on memory, on fear. She needed people to remember, to talk about it, dream about it, relive it. That's what kept the campfire burning. And I'd been telling her story over and over. The fire roared again. I turned to run, but something caught my wrist. Dylan's hand. His skin was hot, glowing from the inside. "You can't leave," he said. "She'll just follow. You started this when you looked back." I wrenched free and dove into the lake. The cold hit like knives. My body went numb instantly. I swam until I couldn't breathe, until the surface light faded, until the water turned black. And for a moment, I felt calm. No fire. No whispers. Just silence. But then I opened my eyes. The water around me was glowing orange. The reflection followed me, even underwater. The campfire burned. I woke up in my apartment again. My clothes soaked. My lungs ached. On my nightstand was the lighter. Still burning, the flame didn't move, didn't flicker, just waited. My phone buzzed once beside it. A new video. It was me, sitting by a campfire, smiling into the camera. Behind me, Lila and Dylan leaned close, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then the woman stepped into frame, placing her hand on my shoulder. And for a split second before the clip ended, I could hear her whisper, clear and calm, "Now tell them what you saw." So that's what I'm doing. I'm telling you. Because maybe if I share it, maybe if you remember it, she'll leave me alone. Maybe she'll find someone else to keep the fire going. Because I can smell smoke again. It's coming from under the door. And I swear, even as I write this, the air is getting warmer. If you see a campfire burning without smoke, don't look too long. Don't listen when it whispers, just walk away, please. The fire hasn't gone out. I thought maybe if I told the story, if I passed it along, it would fade. That was the rule, right? The way urban legends die? You tell them until nobody cares anymore, until the story loses power. But it didn't. Because it's not just a story, it's something that remembers. And last night, it remembered me again. I woke up to the sound of crackling. For a split second, I thought it was my radiator, but the smell hit before I even opened my eyes. Smoke, hot and dry, threaded with that same sickly sweetness I can't describe. Like burnt pine sap and rotting flowers. I sat up, heart pounding, and the whole room glowed faintly orange. Not bright, just pulsing, like a heartbeat under my walls. My lighter was gone, but the flame wasn't. It was burning inside the mirror. At first, I thought it was some reflection trick from the streetlights outside. But the fire moved independently, slow and steady, curling behind the glass. I leaned closer, trying to see where it came from, and I swear I saw movement behind the flames. Someone standing there, tall, still, watching me through the reflection. And just as I realized there was no heat coming from it, no smoke, no smell except the air inside the mirror, she spoke, not out loud, inside my head. "You've done well keeping the fire alive." I stumbled back so hard I hit the nightstand. The mirror didn't break, but the flame inside flared bright like it was laughing. And then it went out. I didn't go back to sleep after that. I sat by the window, staring into the dark until sunrise. The city looked normal again, quiet and gray. But there were tiny burn marks on the wall where the mirror had been hanging. And when I went to check my phone, the camera app was open, recording, the entire night. Except the footage didn't show me. It showed the fire pit, the same clearing, the same trees, and in the background, a voice I know too well, mine saying, "Come closer." "The fire's still warm, I didn't tell anyone." Who would believe it? Mark's dead, Lila's gone. Dylan's, whatever he is now. I'm the only one left who remembers everything clearly enough to write it down. But today, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow taps. When I opened it, there was no one there, just a small box sitting on the mat. No label, no address. Inside there was a flash drive and a note. 2 words written in the same shaky hand from before. For them. I should have thrown it away, but I didn't. The drive contained one file. A video titled Campfire 4MP4. When I played it, it showed a woman standing in front of a fire pit. Not the woman from before. Someone else. Blonde hair. Nervous. Breathing fast. Behind her, someone whispered, "Keep talking." She turned to the camera and said, "I don't know what this is. My friend sent me a link to a story. Said it was cursed, but I don't believe in that stuff." She forced a laugh. "I mean, what's the worst that could happen?" The camera started shaking. The fire behind her grew brighter, and then she froze. Her eyes went wide. She dropped the phone, and the last thing it recorded was her reflection in the flames, her face stretching, melting, until it looked almost exactly like hers, the woman in the fire. I deleted the video immediately. I even smashed the flash drive with a hammer. But when I looked up, the reflection in my TV screen was still burning. That same orange glow. It wasn't a video anymore. It was a live feed, the campfire, burning again, and someone I couldn't see was walking around it. Humming softly, I couldn't hear the words, but I recognized the tune. It was a song Dylan used to sing when we were kids, something about summer never ending. By midnight, my apartment was stifling. I opened the window for air and a gust came through, hot and dry like wind from a furnace. I leaned out and froze. Down in the alley, someone had built a small campfire. No smoke, no smell, just that impossible orange light. 3 people stood around it and one of them looked like me. They were mouthing something in unison, their movements slow, hypnotic. I slammed the window shut, heart racing. But when I looked again, they were gone. The alley was empty, just the faint glow still pulsing in the distance. As if beneath the pavement, I started researching everything I could about Birch Lake. I found a few old newspaper articles from the 70s, campers missing, cabins burned down, stories about a local legend. One phrase kept repeating, "the lady who keeps the flame." Supposedly, she was a woman who died in a cabin fire decades ago. Locals said her spirit haunted the woods, looking for warmth, feeding on fear, memory, and light. Each time someone told the story, another fire would appear somewhere nearby, and when it did, someone vanished. The last reported sighting? 8 months ago, the night Dylan disappeared. I packed a bag. I don't even know why, maybe instinct, maybe stupidity. I drove until the city lights faded and the stars came out. Birch Lake looked almost peaceful from the highway. But when I got closer, I saw the trees, charred, blackened, like something had burned through the forest in a perfect circle. At the center, the fire pit was still there. Still burning. The air was quiet. No crickets, no wind. Just the soft sound of wood crackling, but again, no smoke. I thought maybe this was it, the final moment. The thing that ends the story. But then I heard something behind me. Footsteps. Soft. Wet. When I turned, Dylan was standing there, except it wasn't really him anymore. His eyes were dull, gray. His skin cracked, glowing faintly from underneath. "Like embers trapped beneath flesh, you came back," he said, smiling. "I had to," I said. "I want to end it." He shook his head slowly. "You can't end fire. You can only feed it." Then he stepped aside and I saw her again, the woman from the flames. She didn't speak this time. She just stared. The air around her shimmered, distorting everything. Behind her, the fire pit grew larger, too large. Flames rising higher than the trees, stretching into the sky. And in the glow, I saw faces. Hundreds of them. Every person who ever told her story. Every person who remembered. Their mouths moved together, whispering the same phrase. "Keep it burning." The heat was unbearable. My skin felt like it was peeling, my breath turning to smoke. I ran toward the lake, but it wasn't water anymore. Just a black rippling mirror reflecting the fire. And in that reflection, I wasn't me, I was her. I woke up at dawn, lying on cold sand. The fire was gone. The woods were silent again. But when I looked down at my hands, the skin was darker, cracked, smoldering faintly at the edges, and when I exhaled, smoke came out. My phone buzzed beside me. A message from an unknown number, just one line. "Your turn to keep it burning. It's been a week since then. I haven't left my apartment. I don't sleep. I can feel heat under my skin, spreading. Every time I try to speak, the air in front of me shimmers like heat waves. The fire's inside now. Maybe that's how it spreads. Not through the woods, but through us, through every retelling, every view. Every person who reads this and imagines the glow. That's how she stays alive. That's how the fire never goes out. So if you've made it this far, if you've seen it in your head, the flames, the woods, the faces, then you've already fed her. I used to love summer nights at my uncle's lake house. The air always smelled like wet pine and sunscreen, and the water was so still it looked like glass. I used to sit on the dock for hours, listening to crickets and watching the reflections of stars dance on the lake. But that was before the window started opening on its own. It was the first night I stayed there alone. My uncle had passed away a few months before, and I'd volunteered to clean out the place. He didn't have kids, so it fell to me. I thought it would be peaceful. One last weekend surrounded by his things, saying goodbye to the place I'd loved since I was a kid. The lake house hadn't changed much. Same warped wooden floors, same faded photos of him holding fish bigger than my arm. The air inside smelled faintly of cedar and something else. Something damp like old leaves after rain. I opened every window to let the place breathe. The night air was warm, buzzing with the sound of cicadas. By the time I finished unpacking, it was close to midnight. I sat by the big picture window facing the lake, the one my uncle always called the best view in the county. But that night, the reflection felt wrong. You ever look into a window at night and feel like you're not seeing your own reflection? That's what it felt like. The glass was so dark that my face looked like someone else's, and I pale still too far away. I leaned closer and realized the reflection wasn't moving in sync with me. When I tilted my head, it didn't. I froze. It was subtle, just a second off. Like a lag in a video call, but enough to make every hair on my arm stand up. I turned away, shaking my head. I hadn't slept in almost 20 hours. It was probably just exhaustion. I closed the curtains and went to bed, somewhere around 3 a.m. A soft creak woke me, the kind of creak wood makes when someone's walking on it slowly, carefully. I sat up, heart hammering, and listened. Another sound and a faint scrape, then a quiet click. It came from the living room. I grabbed my phone and tiptoed down the short hallway. The moonlight poured through the curtains, painting pale lines across the floor, and then I saw it. The big window. The same one I'd closed before bed. It was open, just slightly. Maybe an inch or two. The night air drifted in, cooler than before. I could hear the gentle lap of water against the dock outside. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind. Maybe I hadn't latched it properly, so I pushed it shut again, locked it, checked it twice. When I turned to go back to bed, I caught my reflection again in the glass, just for a second, and I swear this time it smiled at me. I barely slept after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear faint noises, shifting boards, a low hum, maybe even breathing. At dawn, I made coffee and sat outside on the deck. The world looked so normal again. Soft pink sky, fog rising off the lake, birds calling from the trees. I almost convinced myself it was just nerves, until I noticed something out on the dock, a wet, footprint, bare human end, leading toward the house. I followed them with my heart pounding. Each step was clearly defined, pressed into the damp wood like someone had just been standing there moments ago. But they ended abruptly halfway up the deck, no other marks. No sign of where the person went, and the boards right by the window, soaked, like someone had stood there for a long time, watching. That night, I tried keeping the lights on. I thought maybe brightness would keep the fear away. But around midnight, the air inside started to feel heavy again. Still, when I looked at the window, the reflection was darker than it should have been. It didn't show the room properly, and it looked deeper, like the glass was thick with shadow. And right behind my reflection, I thought I saw movement, just a faint shimmer, like someone stepping into frame. Right behind me, I spun around. Nothing. But when I turned back to the glass, the window was open again. I slammed it shut, locked it, and this time dragged the couch in front of it. Then I went to the bedroom, shut that door too, and sat on the edge of the bed with my phone flashlight on, waiting for morning. I must have dozed off for maybe an hour. When I woke, the first thing I saw was my reflection in the dresser mirror across the room. Except, I wasn't moving. The reflection was. It turned its head toward the living room door. Before, I even heard the sound of another click, something opening, then a wet footprint, just one. Sliding slowly across the wooden floor outside my room. I didn't open the door that night. I waited, frozen, gripping my phone with both hands until the footsteps stopped. But even then, I didn't breathe. Didn't blink because the silence that followed felt wrong. Not calm, not empty. Just waiting. When I finally dared to peek through the crack under the door, I saw it. A single, wet footprint pressed into the wood floor outside my room. Bare, human, and still glistening. The air smelled like lake water and iron. I wanted to scream, but my throat locked up. I backed away slowly, heart pounding so hard I could hear it echoing in my ears. Then something brushed against the door, soft and dragging. Like fingertips tracing the grain of the wood, 3 slow scratches, then nothing. The next morning, sunlight poured through the cracks in the curtains and everything looked normal again. Almost too normal. No footprints. No scratches. No sign anyone had been there. I laughed out loud. This nervous, broken laugh that didn't even sound like me. I told myself it had to be sleep paralysis or a nightmare. But then I saw the lock on the front door. It wasn't broken. It wasn't forced, it was unlocked. I went outside to clear my head. The air was warm and heavy with that sticky summer smell, pine, algae, and lake mist. The dock stretched out over perfectly still water. My uncle's old fishing chair was still there, tilted slightly to one side. A can of beer rusted into the cup holder. Something about it made me feel safe for a moment, like he was still here, watching over the place. But when I sat down, I noticed something on the opposite side of the lake. A figure, just standing there among the trees, half hidden by branches, too far to see clearly, but close enough to know it was a person. They weren't moving, not waving, not walking, just watching. I stood up fast, the chair clattered over, and when I looked again, they were gone. That night, I didn't even bother pretending I'd sleep. I sat up with the lights on, drinking cold coffee and scrolling through my phone to stay awake. Around 1:30 a.m., the power flickered just once. The lights dimmed. The fridge clicked off for a second. Then everything hummed back to life. And when I looked at the window again, I nearly dropped my mug because there were handprints on the glass. Not on the outside, on the inside. Dozens of them, some small, some large. Pressed into the glass like they'd been made with wet hands. The window wasn't foggy, wasn't cold. But the prints looked fresh. I couldn't move, I just stared at them. My reflection fractured between all those overlapping shapes. Then slowly, one of the prints slid downward, like a hand was still pressed there. I ran for the front door, yanked it open, and stumbled onto the porch. The lake was completely still again. No wind, no sounds, but my uncle's chair on the dock was facing the house. And there was someone sitting in it. They were too still to be alive. I tried to focus, but the air seemed to shimmer between us, like heat waves. And then they stood. Not quickly. Not like a person. More like something rising slowly out of deep water. I ran back inside, slammed the door, locked it, and shoved the dresser in front of it. The sound of the dock creaking echoed through the night, louder than before. Step, 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 then silence, and then very softly from somewhere inside the house. "Why'd you close the window?" My heart nearly stopped. It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't even distant. It was right next to me. The flashlight rolled out of my shaking hand. It hit the floor and spun toward the living room. And in that spinning beam, I saw something wet dripping from the window frame, lake water forming a puddle. And when I looked closer, I saw a reflection in the puddle's surface, not mine, someone else's face, smiling, upside down. I don't remember falling asleep. One moment I was sitting upright with the flashlight shaking in my hand. The next I was waking to silence, the kind of silence that feels thick, like the air itself is holding its breath. For a second I thought maybe it was over. Morning light was pushing through the curtains and the floor looked dry again. I told myself I'd imagined the footprints, the window, everything. But when I went to the kitchen, my stomach dropped. The couch was still dragged in front of the window, exactly where I left it. But the window itself was wide open, and hanging from the latch was a damp handprint, perfectly shaped. Human. I called my friend Becca, the only person who knew I was up there. She offered to drive out and keep me company, but she lived nearly 2 hours away. "Just stay by the water," she said. "If someone's messing with you, they won't come out in daylight." That made sense, I thought. So I spent the day outside trying not to look at the window. The lake was calm again, almost too calm. Every ripple felt controlled, like something beneath was breathing. I waded out to the dock to clear my head. The water was cold, colder than it should have been for midsummer. My uncle used to joke that the lake had its own mood, but I'd never felt it like this before. Halfway down the dock, I saw something glinting between the planks. A key. Old brass, blackened with rust. It looked like it had been there for years, except it was clean. No slime, no rot. I pocketed it, even though I had no idea what had opened. That night, Becca still hadn't arrived. I double-checked every lock, left all the lights on again, and tried to stay awake. Around 11, I heard the water. It was gentle at first, like soft waves hitting the dock. Then it grew louder, rhythmic, step, 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 the sound of wet feet walking through shallow water. I turned off the TV, and my heart nearly stopped. There was someone standing at the end of the dock. I couldn't see their face, Just a tall silhouette, completely still, watching the house. The moonlight reflected off the water, but not off them. It was like they absorbed the light. I tried to grab my phone to record, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. When I looked again, the figure was gone, just the lake, still, perfectly still. And then the sound came again, inside the house. Step, step. I froze. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. Coming from the hallway, I turned off the living room light, crouched low, and grabbed the only thing I could use as a weapon, the heavy flashlight. The air was damp, thick with the same sweet rot from before. Another step. Then, a whisper. You found the key. It was right behind the living room door. I stood there gripping the flashlight so tight it hurt, my pulse roaring in my ears. Then, none silence, just my breathing. I slowly opened the door. Nothing, but the couch was moved, pushed away from the window, and the lock had been turned from the inside. I bolted outside. The dock was empty again, but the air was freezing. Fog rolled across the lake like slow smoke, and somewhere out there, I swear I saw ripples spreading in a perfect circle, as if something had just gone under. When I went back inside, my phone buzzed a message. Unknown number. You shouldn't have opened it. I stared at it for a full minute before my phone started ringing. Same number. Against every instinct, I answered. At first, I just heard static. Then sigh breathing, slow, wet, close. You left the key in the wrong place. I dropped the phone. The sound didn't stop. It kept playing even after I hit decline, muffled, like it was coming from inside the walls. And then the lights flickered. When they came back, every window in the house was open. Every single one. I ran from room to room, slamming them shut. But as soon as I latched one, another opened, always just behind me. When I reached the living room again, I saw something through the big window that made my blood turn cold. A face, pressed against the glass from inside. It wasn't mine. The reflection's eyes were wider, its mouth slightly open, smiling but stretched too far. I stumbled back, tripping over the coffee table. The reflection leaned closer and whispered, though the glass never moved, "Come back to the lake." That's when the power went out. Everything vanished into blackness. And through the silence, I heard the slow creak of the dock outside. 1 step, 2, 3. Then the unmistakable sound of water spilling onto the floorboards. Someone, or something, had just walked back. Inside. Absolutely. Here's the final part of your second story. The sound of water on wood is something you don't forget. It's soft, irregular, almost like footsteps muffled under a blanket. That's what I heard. Water dripping, boards creaking, the faint sound of movement, all coming from the living room. I didn't breathe. Didn't move. Just listened, step, drip, step. The air smelled like the lake, cold and muddy, sharp with algae. My lungs felt heavy with it. I gripped the flashlight tighter and whispered to myself, "It's just in your head. You're tired. It's nothing." But then I saw the reflection again, faint, shimmering on the TV screen across the room. Someone was standing behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But when I looked back, the reflection was still there, still standing, still watching, and slowly, it lifted its hand. I dropped the flashlight and the beam swung wildly across the room. The reflection moved out of sync again, not copying me but acting on its own. Its mouth opened but no sound came out. Then, in one horrifying blink, the window behind it exploded inward. The wind howled through the room, scattering papers, knocking over a lamp. Rain didn't come in, just mist. Heavy and cold like fog pouring through the glass, and in that fog, something was forming, a silhouette, tall, thin, dripping wet. It didn't walk. It slid forward, feet never touching the floor. I stumbled backward until my shoulders hit the wall. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't listen. It stopped in front of the couch, the same spot where I'd blocked the window the night before. For a long moment, it didn't move. Then its head tilted, almost curious. "You shouldn't have stayed alone." The voice came from everywhere at once, on the walls, the floor, inside my head. I tried to speak, but my throat wouldn't work. My phone buzzed on the counter, lighting up the fog. Unknown number again. This time just one word. Open. The thing reached for the lock. and I realized too late that the brass key in my pocket was vibrating. It wasn't meant to keep the window closed, it was meant to let it in. The moment I understood that, the window slammed open on its own. The lights went white-hot, blinding, and every sound dropped out except the deep, guttural hum of the lake itself. The fog rushed in, swallowing everything. I remember running, out the back door, down the dirt path toward the car. The night air was freezing and my clothes clung to my skin, soaked with lake water I couldn't remember touching. When I finally looked back, the house was glowing faintly from within, like a lantern. And in the window a figure stood. I don't remember driving home. I just remember pulling over when the sun came up and realizing I wasn't alone in the car. In the rearview mirror, for half a second I saw her again, the reflection from the lake house window. Only now, she was sitting in the back seat smiling softly. When I turned around, the seat was empty, but the headrest was wet. I never went back to the lake house. Becca tried, the next weekend, but she said there was nothing there. No furniture, no windows, no photos, just 4 burned posts where the house used to stand, like it had never existed. The sheriff told her it probably caught fire during a lightning storm. That's the official story, but I know better, because the fire didn't burn outward, it burned inward, swallowing everything that ever looked through that glass. It's been months now. I moved to a new apartment. No lakes, no woods. Still, every night around 3, I hear the same sound again, faint creaks like wet feet on wood. Sometimes, the window by my bed is open when I wake up, and last night when I went to close it, I saw something that froze my blood, a reflection just barely visible in the dark, smiling, holding that same rusted key. The first time the GPS said turn right onto Hollow Pines Road, I thought it was a glitch. We were supposed to stay on Route 29 for another 40 miles, but there it was, an arrow on the glowing map, pointing into the dark tree line. The weird thing was, there wasn't even a sign for it. No streetlight, no painted post. Just a narrow path swallowed by trees with asphalt cracked open like a dead thing's mouth. Maybe it's a shortcut, Megan said, half asleep in the passenger seat. I almost laughed, but the road looked so still, so perfectly still that it felt wrong to even breathe. The cicadas went quiet as I slowed down. I could feel my headlights dying against the black ahead like the night itself was swallowing the light. Still, I turned. I wish I hadn't. The GPS said we'd reach the highway again in 10 miles. But those 10 miles stretched forever. The air felt heavier the deeper we went in. The trees started leaning inwards, their branches tangled like veins, blocking what little moonlight there was. My dashboard clock flickered from 12:14 to 12:13, then back again. And again, Megan didn't notice. She was scrolling through her phone trying to get service. Nothing. No bars. Weird, right? We had full signal like 5 minutes ago. Her voice was normal, casual. Mine wasn't when I said, yeah, weird. We drove past an old car about 2 miles in. Rusted blue sedan, hood open, no one inside. Its doors were missing and there was a smell. Burnt rubber mixed with something rotten. Megan asked if we should stop. I shook my head so fast it almost looked like panic. No, keep going. Come on, maybe they need help. I didn't answer her, because I'd already looked into the driver's seat. There was someone sitting there. At least I think there was. A shape, perfectly still, staring forward through the shattered windshield. Its head didn't move when my headlights passed over it. Its skin looked gray, or maybe that was just how the light hit. When I blinked, it wasn't there anymore. Just an empty seat. I told myself I imagined it. I told Megan there was no one there. But the smell followed us for miles. A few minutes later, the GPS spoke again, and only this time it wasn't the calm, robotic voice I knew. It was lower. Slower. Like someone whispering through static. In 500 feet, you will reach your destination. What the hell? I muttered, glancing at the screen. The map had changed. It wasn't showing a road anymore. Just a pulsing red dot. Megan leaned forward. It says we're already there. The headlights caught something ahead and an old wooden sign leaning against a fence. I had to brake to read it. Welcome to Hollow Pines, founded 1873. Below it, someone had spray painted over the last word with dripping red letters, stay. Megan laughed nervously. Is this like some weird art thing? Maybe a ghost town. Her words didn't sound real anymore. My hands were gripping the wheel so tight my nails dug into the leather. The air was colder now. I checked the temperature. It had dropped from 82 degrees to 51 degrees in minutes. My breath fogged up the glass, and that's when we saw the man. He stood on the side of the road, tall, thin, wearing clothes that didn't match the time, a checkered shirt tucked into high-waisted pants. His head was slightly tilted as if he was trying to understand something. He didn't move. He didn't raise his hand. He just stared. Then as I drove past, I caught his reflection in the side mirror. He was still watching, still standing in the same spot, but somehow facing the other way, like his head had turned a full 180 degrees. I didn't tell Megan what I saw, but she must have sensed something because she whispered, "Let's just go faster, please." The road seemed endless. Every mile looked the same trees, same cracked pavement, same sagging power lines. And yet the GPS still said 1 mile to destination. Every single time I checked, I started to feel it in my chest. That deep, nauseating certainty that we weren't moving at all. Like we'd been stuck between two places, looping through something that didn't want us to leave. Then Megan gasped, "Stop! Look!" There on the side of the road was the same man. Same clothes, same tilt of the head, only this time he was closer to the car. Maybe 10 feet away, and behind him, behind his shape, I swear I saw 2 faint red lights glowing in the trees. Eyes. Watching us, I pressed the gas pedal so hard the car jolted forward. The engine screamed and the headlights stretched down the road but it didn't help. Because when we passed another curve, he was there again, standing right in the middle of the road this time. No time to swerve, no time to think. I hit the brakes and the car slid sideways, tires screeching against gravel. When it finally stopped, Megan screamed. There was no one in front of us, just an empty road swaying in the cold night air. I turned to her. "Did you see?" Something slammed against the trunk. Once. Hard enough to make the whole car shake. Then again. Megan grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Go, just go!" I slammed the gas pedal, not daring to look back. But I still heard it. The dull thud-thud-thud fading behind us like footsteps chasing after the car. The GPS went black. The screen went out completely, and as we sped deeper into hollow pines, all I could think about was the way the man's head had turned, and how his face had never looked surprised to see us. Like he'd been waiting. I don't know how long we drove after that. Time stopped making sense somewhere between the first scream and the fourth turn that looked exactly the same as the one before it. Every curve of the road had the same dead tree. Every bend had the same crooked sign. It felt like the world was looping itself around us, copying and pasting the same piece of road over and over again. Megan had stopped crying. She just stared out the window, shaking. That scared me more than her screaming ever did, because silence means surrender. At one point I slowed down, hoping maybe I'd spot a turnoff, a driveway, something human. But the car headlights caught something that froze my blood. Our tire tracks, not fresh ones, old ones, cracked into the dirt, half covered in dust. We'd been here before. I don't remember making a sound, but Megan turned to me and whispered, "What is it?" I didn't know how to answer her, because saying it out loud would make it real. We weren't lost. We were stuck. Then, out of nowhere, the radio crackled. I hadn't touched it. The car's Bluetooth had been disconnected for miles. No phone signal, no music, nothing. But now a faint voice was whispering through static. Barely audible at first, like something pressing against glass. "You shouldn't have come." Megan covered her mouth. "What the hell?" The voice grew louder, more distorted. "Turn back. Turn back, turn back." The sound spiked, a horrible burst of static that made the speakers hiss like something alive. I slammed the button to shut it off. The radio went dead, but the air inside the car didn't feel empty. It felt crowded. Like someone was sitting in the back seat, breathing quietly, waiting for us to notice. Megan turned around first. Her phone's flashlight cut through the darkness, catching only our bags. A hoodie, some water bottles. Then she aimed lower. And for just a split second, I saw something underneath the back seat, a hand not moving. Not human either, the skin was too pale, too stretched, the fingers too long. She screamed and dropped her phone. I floored the gas. The car jolted forward, engine roaring, tires spinning on gravel. And when I checked the rearview mirror, There was nothing there, no hand, no shape, just darkness. The headlights caught something new a mile later, a gas station, old, flickering, like something out of a forgotten postcard. The sign read, Hollow Pine Service, open 24 hours. It shouldn't have felt comforting, but it did. A place meant people, and people meant safety. I pulled in fast. The lot was empty except for one old pickup truck with a shattered windshield. Megan didn't wait. She jumped out, ran toward the door, and yanked it open. The bell above it jingled, echoing through the quiet. The air inside smelled like mildew and old cigarettes. Shelves half empty, magazines yellowed with age. There was a man behind the counter, or something that looked like a man. He was tall, thin, gray hair slicked back, wearing a red name tag that said Frank. He didn't look up when we entered, just kept cleaning the counter with a cloth that looked black with dirt. "Sir," I said, breathless, "we're lost. Our GPS led us here, but we can't get back to the highway." He stopped wiping, then looked up. His eyes were cloudy, almost milky white, and when he smiled, it didn't reach his cheeks. "You drove down Hollow Pines Road, it wasn't a question." I nodded slowly. He chuckled, a low, broken sound that didn't sound right coming from a human throat. "Nobody drives down Hollow Pines twice." Megan grabbed my arm. "Please, can you just tell us how to leave?" He didn't move. His hand, still clutching the rag, pointed toward a door at the far end of the store. "You'll find what you're looking for out back." His voice cracked mid-sentence. Like a record skipping, Megan whispered, "Let's just go." But I couldn't move. I don't know why. Maybe it was the way the lights flickered, or how the air suddenly smelled like wet dirt. I turned to look at the glass door we came through. Outside, the road was gone, completely gone, just trees. Thick, endless, choking the horizon. I spun around. "Where's the road?" But the counter was empty. Frank wasn't there anymore. The rag was still on the counter, soaked in something dark red. Megan screamed. I turned. The door at the back of the store was wide open. Cold air poured through it, carrying that same smell from before. Burnt rubber and rot. I wanted to run. I should have run, but something about the silence beyond that doorway pulled at me. There was a faint light flickering somewhere out back. Maybe another car. Maybe a way out. So I stepped closer. The floorboards creaked with each step, and from the other side of the doorway came the sound of breathing, slow, deep, wet. I froze. Megan whispered behind me, "Don't go in there," but then something spoke. "You left me on the road." The voice was broken, gurgling, like air through water. "You shouldn't have driven past." I turned on my phone flashlight, and for just one horrifying second, I saw it. The same man from the road, and his face gray and bloated, eyes bulging, skin cracked like dry river mud. He was standing in the doorway, his head tilted at that same unnatural angle, and behind him, through the trees, were hundreds of faint red lights, eyes, watching us. I grabbed Megan's wrist and ran for the door, but when I looked out the window, the gas station wasn't in the same place anymore. It was sitting in the middle of the road, the same loop. Same trees. The sign outside now read, "Welcome back to Hollow Pines." The sign didn't make sense. I swear it hadn't been there when we first pulled into the gas station lot. But now it loomed outside the glass doors, glowing faintly in the headlights like it had been waiting for us. "Welcome back to Hollow Pines." The words looked freshly painted. Still dripping, Megan was shaking beside me. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Finally, she whispered, "We didn't leave." Did we? I couldn't answer, because deep down I knew the truth. We'd never left that road. We were still on it. The gas station, the voice, the man, all of it was inside whatever Hollow Pines was. When I opened the door, the world outside had changed again. No sound, no wind. The trees were completely still, like someone had frozen time. Even the air felt heavy, like breathing underwater. We walked toward the car, both of us moving slow, like if we ran too fast, something would notice. The temperature dropped as we got closer. I could see my breath coming out in long, shaking clouds. Then Megan stopped. "Wait," I turned. There was a man standing beside our car. Same checkered shirt, same tilted head. He was closer now, only a few feet away. His eyes were darker than before, and so dark they almost reflected the headlights. I didn't say anything. I just took Megan's hand and backed away. He didn't move. He didn't have to, because his shadow was moving instead. It stretched out across the road like liquid, curling toward our feet. "Get in the car," I hissed. Megan scrambled in first. I threw myself into the driver's seat and slammed the locks. The shadow stopped at my door, and then, knock. Soft, gentle, almost polite. But the sound came from inside the car. Megan screamed, kicking at the glove compartment. I turned just in time to see a pale hand press against the inside of the windshield, the same hand that had been under the back seat earlier. The fingers flexed once, twice, and then slowly dragged down the glass, leaving streaks of something black and oily. That's when the radio turned on again. "Keep driving." The voice was clearer this time. No static, just a flat, calm command. "Keep driving and don't stop." So I did. I slammed the car into gear and tore down the road, engine screaming, trees whipping past in flashes of shadow and light. But the thing is, we were still going in circles. No matter how fast I drove, the same curve, the same tree, the same old car we'd seen before kept reappearing. Only this time, the old car wasn't empty. Someone was sitting in the driver's seat. Not a shape this time, not a trick of the light. It was a woman. Long hair matted to her face, eyes open wide, like she'd been sitting there for years. Megan reached out a shaking hand toward the window. "Oh my God." The woman turned her head slowly, too slowly, until her face was perfectly aligned with ours and she smiled. The headlights flickered. The car engine coughed once, twice, then died. We sat in the dark. No engine, no lights, no sound except our own breathing. I tried the key. Nothing. Tried again. Click. The dashboard flickered once, and that's when I saw something new. The clock. It didn't show numbers anymore. Just letters scrolling slowly across the screen. "You shouldn't have left me." Megan was crying again, whispering something under her breath over and over. "Wake up. Wake up, wake up." Then through the window, the woman from the car started walking toward us, not stumbling, not floating, just walking. Every step left a dark footprint on the pavement that didn't fade. "Megan," I started, but she was already opening the door. "Don't," I shouted, grabbing her arm, but she pulled away. "I'm not staying in here." "She's not real." She stepped out into the dark. The woman stopped moving. For a second, it almost looked like she was waiting. Then she raised her hand, slow and deliberate, and pointed straight at Megan. The woods erupted with whispers, dozens of voices, echoing through the trees, all whispering the same thing. "Stay. Stay. Stay." Megan screamed and ran. I went after her, but the fog rolled in so fast I could barely see a few feet ahead. Her footsteps grew fainter and fainter, and then they stopped. I called her name until my throat burned. Nothing answered. Not even an echo. The forest swallowed everything. The only thing I could hear was breathing. Not mine, not Megan's, but something right behind me. I turned around, flashlight shaking. There was no one there. Just a tree with something carved into its trunk, fresh cuts. Deep letters. "Welcome to Hollow Pines, Megan." I ran back to the car. Locked the doors. Sat in silence. Her door was still open. Her phone lay on the ground outside. Screen cracked, flashlight still on. And when I picked it up, the last thing she'd opened was her camera app. There was a single video, 30 seconds long. In the reflection of the car window, I saw her filming herself, whispering, "If anyone finds this." But before she could finish, a pale hand reached up from the darkness behind her and covered her mouth. The screen went black. I don't remember how long I sat in the car after Megan disappeared. Minutes, hours, it didn't matter. The darkness outside never changed. Every time I blinked, I expected the sun to come up. But it didn't. The night just stayed. Like time had given up on this place. The headlights were dead. The dashboard was dead. Even the air around me felt drained, like Hollow Pines had sucked the life out of everything it touched. And then the radio clicked on again. No static this time. Just one faint, trembling voice. "You left her." I froze. It wasn't the distorted voice from before. It was Megan. "You left me. You shouldn't have done that." Her tone was calm, almost conversational. The sound of her breathing came through the speakers, slow and even, like she was sitting right beside me. "It's okay," she said softly. "It's your turn now." Then the radio went silent again. I tried starting the car one more time, and out of pure panic, not logic. The key turned, the engine coughed, then died. So I did the only thing left. I got out and started walking. The fog swallowed me instantly. The road behind me vanished in seconds, replaced by endless black trees. The only sound was the gravel crunching under my shoes. Every time I turned around, I swore I saw movement, just at the edge of the fog, just far enough that I couldn't be sure. A silhouette. Maybe Megan, maybe something pretending to be her. After what felt like hours, I saw a flicker of light through the trees. Warm, flickering, like a fire. My heart jumped. Civilization. Someone else. Anyone else? I followed it, stumbling off the road and into the woods. The smell of smoke grew stronger, but there was something off about it. Too sweet, too sharp, like burning hair. When I broke through the tree line, I saw it. A campfire, crackling in the middle of a small clearing, and around it were cars, dozens of them. Old, new, all different makes and models. Some were rusted through, some looked freshly parked. All with the same hollow license plates covered in dirt. The firelight reflected off metal and glass, making everything shimmer. Then I saw her, Megan, sitting cross-legged by the fire. I called her name, voice breaking. Megan. She turned. Slowly. Her eyes caught the light, and for a moment I thought she smiled. Then I realized she wasn't blinking. Her skin looked pale and waxy, and there was a faint red line around her neck, like something had been wrapped tightly there. Megan, I whispered. She tilted her head to the side just slightly, exactly the way that man had on the road. You came back, she said softly. Her voice didn't sound right, like two voices overlapping, hers and something deeper. I backed away. What happened to you? She smiled wider. We stayed. And as she said it, I saw them, figures sitting in the shadows beyond the fire. Some leaning against cars, some standing half in darkness. Their faces were gray and still, their heads all tilted in the same direction. Every single one of them was watching me. I turned and ran. Branches tore at my arms, the cold air burning my lungs, but I didn't stop. The trees blurred past until I stumbled back onto the road. My car was still there, headlights dead. The door hanging open. I jumped in, slammed the door, and pressed my head against the steering wheel, trying to breathe. But when I looked up, the dashboard clock was on again. Only now it showed 3:07 a.m., the same time it had shown the moment we first turned down Hollow Pines. And next to it, glowing faintly in the darkness, the GPS flickered back to life. A single line of text appeared, destination reached. Then the headlights turned on by themselves, and standing in front of the car was Megan. She wasn't smiling this time. Her eyes were empty, her mouth hanging open slightly. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She stepped forward, barefoot, dragging her hand along the hood as she came closer. The sound of her nails against the metal made my stomach twist. Then she leaned down to the window and whispered something I'll never forget. It's not a road. It's a mouth. Her breath fogged the glass, and then she was gone. Just gone. The fog lifted for a moment. The road stretched ahead, empty. I saw the faint outline of the highway sign in the distance. Route 29, 1 mile. I laughed, an ugly cracked sound. I hit the gas. The engine sputtered but caught. The car lurched forward, tires crunching over gravel. The sign grew closer. My heart started to race again, a wild, desperate hope. But when I reached it, the words on the sign weren't the same. Welcome to Hollow Pines. My stomach dropped. I looked down at the GPS. It was rerouting again. In 500 feet. Turn right onto Hollow Pines Road. The air inside the car was suddenly colder. The windows fogged up even though the heater was off, and in the rearview mirror I saw movement. Someone sitting in the back seat. I didn't turn around. I couldn't because I already knew what I'd see. Her pale face, those empty eyes, that soft smile. Keep driving, she whispered. I did, I don't know why. Maybe because there's nothing else to do. The trees never end. The road never changes. And every time I look in the mirror, she's closer, smiling, waiting.